Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
Tonight, could it be? Professor Channa Jayasumana reveals an attempt by the Tamil National Alliance to represent Sri Lanka at the UNHRC session in Geneva. Another snag. Amnesty International urges President Maithripala Sirisena to halt plans for capital punishment. Turning a corner. Sri Lanka becomes the first Asian team to win a test series on South African soil. Sad end to an impoverished cadre. Dozens die of bootleg liquor poisoning in Assam. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Saturday, the 23rd of February 2019.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhamika Kanayakan. Let's start you off with your local stories. The much talked about formation of an opposition coalition may have seen its first step towards becoming a reality last evening. A discussion was held on the subject under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena and opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa. However, the chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Peiris, and its national organizer Basil Rajapaksa did not attend the meeting.
A discussion was held last evening regarding the formation of a new coalition of the opposition with the participation of President Maithripala Sirisena and opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa at the president's official residence. Although the leaders of the United People's Freedom Alliance representing the opposition attended the meeting, the chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Peiris, and its national organizer Basil Rajapaksa were not present.
Discussions to form the broadest anti-UNP coalition are being held successfully. All the leftist, patriotic and nationalistic forces have gathered today. Committees are appointed for those purposes and they will take necessary decisions in the future. No, we will form a new alliance under a name which everyone will agree upon.
Basil Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa wage prabalayo ඇවිල්ලා හිටියද?
No, but representatives from all those parties attended the meeting. People will be able to know the constitution and the policy declaration before long. We're not doing anything in secrecy.
පුළුවන් වෙයි කිසිම දෙයක් රහසිගතව නෙවෙයි කරන්නේ.
ඒක මුදුමන පුළු සන්දානයක් ලෙස මොන මැතිවරණ දිස්සරම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ.
පළාත් සභා ඡන්ද බලාපොරොත්තු
වෙන්නේ. ඒක කල් යනවනේ එන්නෙම.
ඒක ඉතින් ගන්න ඕන අපි.
මන්ත්‍රීතුමා බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහතා ඇයි මේකට අදිමදි කරන්නේ?
නෑ කිසි අදිමදි කරilla නෑ.
ගිය පාරේකට ආවෙත් නෑ.
නෑ ඒ
Maybe he wasn't invited for this. Parliamentarians are the ones who attended the meeting, but he never hesitates to do such things.
අදිමදි කරන්නේ.
Now, in the meantime, leader of the opposition Mahinda Rajapaksa voiced his take on the last evening's talks, saying that the consensus of the meeting was to commence discussions in a bid to form an alliance between the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Speaking to media in Thisamaharame today, the opposition leader also responded to questions over appointments to the Constitutional Council.
Leader of the opposition Mahinda Rajapaksa arrived at the Mahavapi temple in Pannegamuwa this morning to attend the funeral of its chief incumbent Venerable Middeniya Nanda Thera. He was also the chief incumbent at the Sri Ramananda Chaitya Rama temple in Kotigodalla of Beliyatta. After attending the late Thera's funeral, the opposition leader responded to questions raised by media.
Shamal was earlier appointed to the council, but he resigned because another member representing the opposition leader can't be appointed to the council. Now we have appointed Douglas Devananda and we are having further discussions with the Prime Minister as to who should be appointed.
ඊයේ ජනාධිපතිතුමත් එක්ක පැවති සාකච්ඡාවේදී ගත්ත තීරණ සම්බන්ධයෙන් එකතු වීම පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡාවක්.
It was suggested that discussions should get underway on an alliance between the two parties. We discussed the formation of a broad alliance. Decision-making was vested with a committee which comprises of members of the SLPP and the SLFP. We also discussed about protests that we are going to organise. The constitution is not prepared yet. Now, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe believes that the results of the last local authorities election have intoxicated some political factions to the point they believe they should be given power. Addressing a religious event held in Kantale today, the Premier added that a national alliance will be formed targeting the next polls. We should govern the country in accordance with law. Law is not only included in books like the Constitution. Lord Buddha too preached about laws as to how a country should be ruled. We say that we are Sinhala Buddhists, but it is an insult to our Sinhalese nature. They asked to remove all the laws and regulations in the country. Are we ready to abolish the 19th Amendment? I see that there is a threat to democracy. They are intoxicated by the results of the local authorities election and they think they should have the power. Last time we went for elections under a collective of political parties. This time we thought of going one step further and creating a national alliance for the elections. Let us all get together around that alliance. There have been claims and accusations, especially by the opposition, that the Tamil National Alliance has become the puppet master behind all government moves, given that the government is relying on TNA's backing. Given this political reality, Professor Channa Jayasumana today alleged that TNA parliamentarian M.S. Sumandiran is attempting to represent Sri Lanka at the United Nations Human Rights Council during its session next month. Speaking at a seminar of the organisation earlier, the professor urged the president to allow intellectuals to represent the country at the session.
Another seminar of the organisation Elia was conducted in Divulapitiya today under the patronage of the former Secretary of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
We received information on an attempt by Sumandiran to represent the government at the upcoming human rights session in Geneva. If that is the case, we request the President to give a chance to 10 intellectuals to appear at the UNHRC on behalf of the country. We represented the country last time as well. We should stop this betrayal from progressing any further. We should appoint a leader who loves the country. He should also be a person who has the ability to develop the country while protecting its resources. There is no necessity for me to announce his name, as you already know who we should appoint as our leader. Whatever the system of governance, this country should ensure a stable central government. It is also the expectation of the foreign investors. We should also practice transparency. The MIG deal was a much criticised transaction, but it was the most transparent transaction in the military history of the country. Our country should have people with the presence of mind. Basil Rajapaksa has created the political foundation by claiming a historic first election win by any budding party in the country. Just as Basil Rajapaksa said that we will champion nothing but policies, I invite you to come forward and champion a leadership with proper policies and a leadership that has worked for the country. A protest was launched in Rathgama today against the alleged abduction and murder of 2 businessmen from Busa. The protest was staged at the Rathgama Junction this afternoon, blocking vehicular movement along the Colombo Road and the coastal railway line at Rathgama. A group of villagers and relatives of the 2 businessmen demanded justice and a fair investigation into the murders. During the protest, the mother and sister of one of the businessmen received a telephone call from an unidentified person demanding 500,000 rupees in ransom for the release of their family member. The caller was heard saying that the burnt remains discovered by the CID at Madagangoda Forest Reserve in Valasmulla were in fact charred animal bones and the victim is among the living. Meanwhile, speaking to media today, police media spokesperson SP Ruwan Gunasekara said that an inspector and a sub-inspector of police are apprehended while investigations will be conducted under the advice of the Attorney General. Human rights watchdog Amnesty International urged President Maithripala Sirisena to halt plans to execute at least 13 people for drug-related crimes and review all cases of people currently under sentence of death with a view of commuting their sentences to terms of imprisonment. In an open letter published on its website yesterday, Amnesty's Secretary-General requested President Sirisena to fulfill Sri Lanka's international commitments and respect the right to life. He went on to say, quote, "Executions, Mr. President, are not a show of strength, but an admission of weakness," unquote. Amnesty also warned Sri Lanka against pursuing a path being followed by the Philippines, stating that under President Rodrigo Duterte's rule, overwhelming killings have taken place in impoverished neighborhoods and are currently the subject of a preliminary examination by the Office of the Prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. Amnesty International also urged the President to establish an official moratorium on executions with a view to abolishing the death penalty in line with 7 resolutions adopted by the General Assembly since 2007, including most recently Resolution 73/175 of 17th of December 2018, which Sri Lanka supported. Our humanitarian arm, Derana, conducted a mobile health clinic in Arnamaduwa today. This is the 40th installment of the project to create awareness on treatment of kidney-related diseases and other health issues.
The 40th installment of the mobile health clinic organised by Derana was held at the Velevava Sri Dharmarama Temple in Arnamaduwa today. Blood and urine tests were performed to diagnose kidney-related diseases among patients who visited the health camp. The humanitarian project was conducted with the assistance of the Past Pupil Association of the Arnamaduwa Central College, together with Arnamaduwa Base Hospital, Centre for Endocrinology, Diabetes and Cardiometabolism, Legions Hospital, HelpAge Sri Lanka, Octan Private Limited and the Sri Lankan Airlines Trade Union. Dry rations were distributed to expectant mothers who attended the health clinic by members of the Sri Lankan Airlines Trade Union. Meanwhile, free eye tests were conducted by the Sri Lanka Optometric Association at the venue.
Now, Minister of Agriculture P. Harrison today told media that a pricing formula will be introduced for paddy as well. Now, let's take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
Over 3,700 persons were arrested for various offences during a special island-wide police operation yesterday. Approximately 5,818 cases have been filed for traffic-related offences during the operation conducted upon instructions of the IGP. A person was killed after being attacked by an iron rod within a police station in Polonnaruwa. Both the victim and the attacker were present at the police station to give statements to police. A personal dispute between the two had led to the incident. Meanwhile, Maharagama police recovered a body with bullet wounds from the area of Araliya Uyana along the Maharagama-Burella route last night. 2 spent ammunition casings were found at the scene, while the reason and the culprit behind the incident is yet to be ascertained. The movement dubbed the 1000 campaign today distributed pamphlets in the town of Bagavantalava calling for the minimum wage of plantation workers to be increased to 1,000 rupees. During the campaign, another faction of plantation workers arrived at the scene and obstructed proceedings, which led to a tense situation.
We got the views of the new chief of Sri Lanka Tourism, Kishu Gomez, on how to move forward and regulate the sector on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Derana 24.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority recently embarked on a mutual partnership to prepare tourism development master plan for identified areas across the country and to grant certification for all tourism service providers. Speaking at the launch of this program, newly appointed chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Development and Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion, Kishu Gomez, stressed the importance of all tourism service providers, formal or informal, being certified by the Ministry of Tourism. He also highlighted that having such certification can help all service providers to achieve greater value and rate offering for their services.
The objective of the initiative by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority and the Urban Development Authority is set to specific guidelines for tourism development and for tourism-related activities, thereby avoiding ad hoc tourism development and unacceptable service practices. The program also hopes to encourage thematic development catering to specific tourist segments and develop a proper monitoring mechanism to ensure sustainability.
In an environment where we are expecting optimistic growth, you can easily make mistakes. We either develop the industry the right way or we don't do it at all. That's the policy we should be having. And these are best global practices that we have to embrace as a tourism destination. There are so many hotels that are coming up, and in certain areas we have some concerns where some hoteliers and others are not complying with the standards we have in place. There should not be theoretically a single tourism entity that is not certified by Sri Lanka Tourism. So that's our vision, that's our goal, and we're working towards that. So it's all about value creation for the industry, and if they embrace that in that way, I'm sure they will be able to use this certification in order to probably fetch a high price. So we have a goal of 5 billion for this year, and in terms of number, we're chasing 3 million tourists, and over last year it's about a 30% increase, and I've not heard of any country that is being able to grow tourism year-on-year basis by 30%, so it's very, very optimistic.
If the Sri Lankan government is dependent on tourism to be is #1 foreign exchange earner, then we have to live up to these standards. Formal sector is around 40,000 rooms, if I'm not mistaken. Informal sector is 50,000 rooms. Now all this jugglery takes place, or the violations take place in the informal sector. I have been requesting the authorities try and as early as possible to bring all of them under the banner of formalities. Register them and make them under the supervision of the Ministry of Tourism. The capacity is there to accommodate 5,000-6,000 million easily. There is no problem.
Now, US President Donald Trump expressed optimism on a trade deal with China after meeting with Chinese Vice Premier Liu He in the Oval Office yesterday. The US President said he plans to meet with President Xi Jinping to work out the final details of a deal fairly soon, and those conversations are likely to take place at Mar-a-Lago in Florida next month.
I think we have a very good chance of making a deal, but both parties want to make it a meaningful deal, not a deal that's done and doesn't mean anything. We want to make this a deal that's going to last for many, many years, and a deal that's going to be good for both countries. China has the advantage of having many years of tremendous success at the expense of the United States, so they understand that. And I never blamed China for that. I blamed our past leaders. Our leaders have done a lousy job with trade.
Trump said he expects to meet China's leader Xi Jinping soon, and the biggest trade decision would be made between the two leaders, though he left open the possibility that he and Xi would not work out the final points. If the two sides fail to reach a deal, US President Donald Trump is scheduled to raise tariffs to 25% from 10% on $200 billion of Chinese imports into the United States. A rise in tariffs would be a further blow to manufacturers struggling to deal with the disruption to their supply chains caused by tit-for-tat tariffs imposed in a trade war that has roiled markets and slowed global economic growth.
Time to look at news from overseas. Now, at least 70 people have died and more than 200 are being treated in hospital after drinking toxic bootleg liquor in northeastern India. Several women are among the victims who all worked on tea plantations in the state of Assam. The deaths come 2 weeks after tainted spirits killed about 100 people in the northern states of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Local reports say that the number of deaths is expected to rise. All victims worked in tea gardens in Golaghat and Jorhat districts. Golaghat district police told media that 58 people in the district died from drinking illegal liquor. International media quoted another source as saying that 12 more people have been killed by the poisonous liquor in the district of Jorhat. The UK government has agreed contracts worth £104 million from outside help on Brexit. Since the EU referendum, Whitehall has hired companies to do consultancy work to prepare for the UK's EU exit. The BBC quotes analyst firm Tussell as saying that Boston Consulting Group, PwC and Deloitte being among companies with the most valuable Brexit contracts. A spokesperson for the UK government said that departments drawing on advice of external specialists was standard. 6 companies each received a contract worth £10 million for Cabinet Office consultancy support for EU exit. These contracts for strategic programme management run for a year until the 1st of May this year and give government the option of extending them for another year at the same price. The US-based Boston Consulting Group has received 5 contracts worth £14.2 million to work with the Cabinet Office departments for environment, exiting the European Union and business.
Cannot mean membership.
Moving on with other international stories now, Venezuela has said that its border with Colombia has been partially closed shortly after opposition leader Juan Guaido defied a travel ban to cross it. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez tweeted to say the total temporary closure was due to serious threats against the country's sovereignty and security. Tensions have been rising over a row over the delivery of humanitarian aid. 2 people were killed by Venezuelan security forces yesterday near the border with Brazil. The violence was condemned by the United States government, which said in a statement that the Venezuelan military must allow humanitarian aid to peacefully enter the country and that the world is watching. Guaido, the leader of the country's opposition-dominated National Assembly, last month declared himself the country's interim leader. He has since won the backing of dozens of nations, including the US. He has called the rule of President Nicolas Maduro constitutionally illegitimate, claiming that Maduro's re-election in 2018 was marred by voting irregularities. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will make an official visit to Vietnam in coming days as the Southeast Asian country prepares for his summit with US President Donald Trump next week in the capital, Hanoi. Kim is visiting upon the invitation of the President and General Secretary of the ruling Communist Party. The Hanoi summit on the 27th and 28th of this month follows the 2 leaders' historic June meeting in Singapore. North Korea's state media have yet to confirm either Kim's trip to Vietnam or his summit with Trump. The preferred location for the summit is the government guest house, a colonial-era building in central Hanoi. We got the results of a scintillating test match between Sri Lanka and South Africa coming up right after this break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is Other Derana 24.
Now, staying with cricket, Afghanistan smashed a world record T20 international score of 278 for 3 against Ireland in India today. Hazratullah Zazai smashed an unbeaten 162 off just 62 balls, hitting 11 fours and 16 sixes as Afghanistan eclipsed the previous record of 263 for 3 made by Australia in 2016. Meanwhile, West Indies produced an inspired fight back to claim a thrilling 26-run victory over England and levelled the one-day series 1-1 in Barbados yesterday. Chasing 290 for victory, England lost their last 6 wickets for 35 runs as they subsided for 263. Jason Holder dismissed Joss Buttler and Tom Curran in consecutive deliveries during England's collapse, while Sheldon Cottrell took a career best of 5 for 46. Shimron Hetmyer was the highest run scorer for the West Indies as he went on to make an unbeaten 104 runs. Just 2 days ago, England chased down a record 360 with ease to win the opening match of the series by 6 wickets. The third ODI will take place in Grenada on Monday. And that's it from all of us here at First to 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.